Okay, hello everyone. Good evening and good day to you all. Very warm welcome to you all, honorable speaker, honorable moderator, all participants, students, and all professionals. Thank you for taking the time to joining the technical discussion group organized by SPE Java Indonesia Section in this new year, 2023. Before we start, let me share with you the timetable of this evening. Can you click the slide? Yeah, thank you, Mbak Fanya. So we aim to end the webinar at 9 p.m. sharp, hopefully. And before we start, the event will be shortly opened by our SPE Java Indonesia Program Section. Vice Chairperson Mbak Dian Permanasari, and after that we'll have a few slides on SPE Java Membership Section. Will be led by Mbak Cesi Belavania, and after that Mas Andri, our moderator, will introduce himself and also will introduce our speaker, Pak Peter Cockcroft, and we will start the presentation shortly after that, hopefully at 7, and we'll ask for 60 minutes. And before a Q&A, we'll have a photo session. And after that, we will end the webinar. And hopefully we can end that at 9 p.m. sharp. Can go to the next slide, Mbak Cesi. Okay, before we start, I will hand it over the floor to Mbak Dian to formally open this event. Thank you, Mbak Dian.
Thank you, Mas Valen. So good evening, everyone. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Dian Permanasari. I am currently the Technical Program Chairperson of SPE Java Indonesia Section. And together with me, we have our TDG committee members, Mas Andika, Mas Valen, and of course, we have also Mbak Fanya, who always helps us to host these events. So on behalf of the SPE Java TDG committee, I would like to welcome all of you to our regular technical discussion group webinar as part of our effort to disseminate knowledge to our SPE Java members and on non-member alike. So this time we have the second TDG session out of 4 that we have prepared for the CCUS topic. Yeah. So we have the honor of having Pak Peter Cockcroft from Asia Pacific Net Zero Institute as the speaker, and Pak Andri, Luthfi, Lukman, Hakim from Best Oil Sukananti Limited, who will help us as the moderator. So I hope we can all gain some knowledge and have more insight on the topic being discussed this evening. So that's all from me, and over back to you, Mas Valen.
Thank you, Mbak Dian. Thank you for the great opening. So we will continue with a few slides highlighting SPE Java membership from Mbak Cesi. Mbak Cesi, time is yours.
Thank you, Mas Valen. So let me share my screen first. 1 second. Okay, sorry for that. Sorry. Yeah, this one. Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Cesi Belavania. I'm from Membership Officer. So today I will give a brief introduction about SPE and how to join the membership. So who we are, maybe some of the participants today has not joined SPE yet. So I will explain a little bit about SPE. So SPE is the largest individual member organization serving engineers, scientists, managers, and other professionals worldwide in the oil and gas industry. So we are the society that focus on the oil and gas industry. But nowadays, we are also expanding our focus to the renewables energies or the new energy. So all of the membership will understand about the energy perspectives better and up to date. So like I have been writing on the chat box, maybe you can also write down your profession or your currently focus at school, at university, maybe, so we can gain more knowledge about who you are, how you join this session, what do you interest with. So yeah. How many members in SPE at the moment? So we are globally have more than 124,000 members in 15 regions in 134 countries. So we are a very huge society. And then we are doing more than 100 events every year. We provide unparalleled insight, share expertise, lifelong learning, and community strength to fuel the success of our members and the future of industry. So what is our mission and vision? Like today, the purpose of doing TDG, the mission is collect, disseminate, and exchange the technical knowledge. Like today's topic, it's CCUS. And then we provide opportunities for professionals to enhance their technical and professional competencies. And other than that, our vision is we want to enable the global oil and gas E&P industry to share the technical knowledge required to meet the world's energy needs in safe and environmentally responsible manners. But now we are also expanding to the new energy. So how's SPE in Asia Pacific? So yeah, this slide explain you about the Asia Pacific's location. So here in Asia Pacific, we are having a lot of events. So 8 events in 5 locations each year. And then we have more than 10,000 members in Asia Pacific. We are also doing conferences, symposia, workshop, and forums cater to every disciplines. So it's very important to understand what is your focus, what is your discipline, so we can help you get the information or enhance your knowledge about your passion. So what is the benefits to be our membership? To be our members in SPE, there are 4 main benefits. First, you can get the access to the technical resources. So yeah, as the world's leading technical knowledge resources, you can get like the research or publications. So you can get it under SPE membership. Second, there is a networking opportunities here. So you will meet, you will expand your network. Maybe you are having a volunteering experience. So yeah, it's the place for you to gain the networking opportunities. The third one, you can get the access to training and certification where it can help you to develop your professional's career path. So yeah, this is a good place for you to doing the training and certification. We are doing that regularly. So please, yeah, check our website about this certification and training. For the 4th point here, there is also recognition and awards. So like I mentioned earlier, you can get the access about publication and research. So you can also release the research or publication by yourself. And then you can get the awards here by SPE. So let's try to write down or publish the research that you are interested with. We are the place for you to publish this research. So other than that, you can have additional benefit here. First, you can join like myself, Mas Valen, and Mbak Dian here. You can join SPE here for free for the event or maybe others event that we are having. So please join with us, and there is no additional cost, of course. So it's good if you are becomes our members. And then volunteering opportunities. Second here, like myself, I'm also focused on my daily job, but in my spare time, I'm volunteering SPE as a membership. So it's good for you to also maybe join us as a volunteer. And then third is to become a mentor. If you are interested to become a mentor or request a mentor, yes, it's a good place also for you to enhance your skills. Number 4, for the students, we offer scholarship and fellowship. So if you are students that are interested to get some scholarship from us, there is classification regularly. Reach out to your student chapter to get more information about this opportunity. So yeah, how to join SPE? On my next slide here, you can see there is a new professional membership cost. So for the first time, you need to pay around 30 USD plus 10 USD for the entrance fee. But on the upcoming years, you just need to pay around 30 every year. And then the first year of graduation, it's still for free. So yeah, it's good time for you who just graduated, join us. And then for the second year graduation, you need to pay around 15, so it's half price. It's good also, affordable, I believe. Join us with a lot of benefits that I mentioned earlier. And for student, actually, you have the sponsorship from Chevron. If you are registering yourself as student, when you are going to our website, there is an option to tick a sponsorship from Chevron. So yes, please do that. And then there is no cost for you to join us as a membership. If you want to know more, please contact my colleague here, Pak Tommy Jamail, and also Pak Caksananda Oriandi. You can reach out to them by their phone number or email. So we will help you on how to join the SPE. Okay. Next, for the payment option, we have several options like credit card, PayPal, check or money order, wire transfer. Let us know what do you prefer, or let us know if you need some help about the payment. Or there's also option for lifetime membership here if you want to just join one time. So yeah, let me know, and then we will help you also. You can also contact this email address about this lifetime membership. For a company bulk, maybe you want to invite your colleagues, your peers at the office to join SPE. Yes, there is an option. So company bulk payment also is one of the options to join together with your colleagues. And there's also some Newsweaver for special circumstances for permanent disability, unemployment, active military duty, and so on. So yeah, there's also Newsweaver during that period. So let us know. Reach out to us. Okay, so for the members who hasn't renewed the membership, the membership will be lapsed. But you can reinstate that membership. There are two options. First option is you can retain from your origin, join that. Or second option, you can join for the new join that. So it's up to you. We have the option for you. Let us know if you need help about reinstating your membership. Okay. I think that's all from me, Mas Valen. Yeah, if you guys have a question about membership, please put the question on the chat box. I will help you with that. And yeah, that's all. Reach out to me anytime. Over to you, Mas Valen.
Thank you, Mbak Jessie. Excellent presentation, brief and concise about SPE membership and how to join the SPE, our community. Okay, we will shortly move up with the presentation. Before that, I will hand it over the floor to our esteemed moderator, Mas Andri Luthfi. The floor is yours. Please introduce yourself, and then you can introduce Peter Cockcroft again formally, and then we can start the webinar. Thank you, Mas Andri.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Mas Valen. Good evening, everybody. And welcome to the SPE Java Section Technical Discussion Group Webinar Series number 7 on the CCUS topic. We are also appreciate your taking the time to join us for this beautiful evening. I am the evening moderator. Please allow me to introduce myself. Before we start this FGD, my name is Andri Lukman Hakim. I'm working as management in oil and gas company with a background in geology and reservoir. And also currently I'm involved in several research related to CO2 on the pH behavior of CO2 when used as an EOR. So Later on, if we are talking about the EOR, maybe we can discuss it again. But I am joined by the evening speaker, Mr. Peter Cockcroft. So welcome, Peter. To all participants, once again, we thank you for your presence. I see that tonight there were quite people attending this 7th FGT of CCUS. So hopefully you will enjoy this discussion. Tonight we will learn together and get more knowledge from our speaker and discuss about putting the U into the CCUS. In the subsequent session, Pak Peter will discuss this topic in further detail. So this is not something new scientifically, but maybe this is something new for us. Yeah, not of all us understanding about the CCUS, maybe carbon capture storage, but the utilization is many things, right? So, for your information, maybe some of you also knows that this nation has just started the net zero emission campaigns, which was conferred at the G20 in Bali last year and stated by the president as documented in the National Determined Contribution, or NDC, that Indonesia is committed to reduce the emission by 31.8% in 2030 and net zero emission in 2060. So you at CCUS is expected to be able to generate interest for all stakeholders to reduce the emissions so that the energy transition to green energy become more attractive to implement. So tonight we will hear and learn from Peter Cockcroft about his experience in energy transition implementation. So please allow me to read a brief biography of Peter before he begins his presentation. He is an expert who has been in energy sector for a long time with more than 40 years of experience. Wow, that's almost the same with my age now. Actually, so this is very excellent. We are glad to have Peter here. Then he has served on the board of directors for more than 10 companies and had advised president in 2 countries. So this is amazing experience. So currently he is focusing on expertise related to the energy transition, including CCUS and hydrogen utilization. Peter has been chairman for 3 SPE division and also SPE distinguished lecturer. So in 2021, Peter founded a training and advisory company for energy transition based in Singapore. So before we start, let's see the abstract of this discussion. Mbak Apanya, please continue with the abstract. Okay, so this is the abstract of the discussion. It will talk about the opportunity of the use of carbon dioxide and in the development products, and also it's related to the climate change mitigation, net zero emission, and so on. And the most important is the U will give you advantages and become a future GHG or greenhouse gases emitters like e-fuels, aviation fuels, and ethanol, and using of the chemicals and material derived from the CO2 and other things. So to save time, I invite Peter to prepare his presentation. But again, before we starting, I need to remind you again about the rules during this session. So the first is, don't forget to all participants to mute your microphone. If you have any question, please write directly in the chat box and I will start writing your question and will be read at the end of this presentation. Or if you have any immediate question, raise your hand and I will give you a time to talk. So please do not talk before I allow you to talk. And again, don't forget to turn on your camera, because at the end there will be a documentation. All right. So enough from me. Please, Peter, prepare to start. Time and Zoom. You can share now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. So folks, please enjoy the presentation. It's time for Peter to present his materials. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Peter.
Well, thanks for inviting me, guys. I'm how can I say it? I'm an old guy, and I've been involved with Indonesia. Well, frankly, I first came to Indonesia when I was 15 years old, because my father was writing a book about the country at the time. And I first worked for Pertamina in Bunyu and then Cirebon back in the 70s. And you mentioned before about the membership of SPE. I've been a member since 1981, and I find it very useful to meet people. Wherever you go in the world, if you're traveling anywhere and you want to catch up with people, going to a meeting is always a good way to do it. And I've done that, and I've been lucky enough over my time to also have given talks in more than 26 countries. And I started off as a development geologist, really, because I really wasn't a very good geologist. I was more of an engineer, trying to put three-dimensional problems on a two-dimensional piece of paper. And that's what engineers do, isn't it? Try to put a straight line through everything and you change the scales accordingly. And and we've had to, over the years, we've had to change our methodology. I remember when I first got involved in the LNG world, I was working for Pertamina, and I was a commercial guy back in the early 80s, and we didn't know anything about LNG. So we had to learn. We had to modify our knowledge base. And and we've had to do that over the years. When we started offshore production, floating production. Yeah, we've had to modify ourselves. Now we're doing it again now with the energy transition, the decarbonization, and that's where we're going now with carbon storage, other utilization of carbon dioxide. How to do net zero planning, how to lower your carbon footprint. And that's really the focus of this talk today, in that we want to talk about, is there any other opportunities in Indonesia particularly, but also in general, to monetize carbon dioxide, especially when we realize that carbon storage, carbon sequestration, there's no value to that. It's not a profit making project. You can't. It's more of a cost center rather than a profit center. So if we can find other uses for CO2, that's a good idea. I think that's worthwhile exploring. This talk we have today, I looked at the number of people joining. We won't get too involved in the chemical engineering side. It's pretty boring, especially at 7:30 at night. And seeing but I have a few chemical flow charts in the presentation but we won't go into those too much because, as I said, they're boring. But I will pass on all the slides to everyone, you know, that so you can look at them if you desire. So now I'm going to try and do something I've never done before, is share a presentation. Now I am trying to find it on my screen. Ah, there we go. And now I'm trying to find my presentation on my here.
Nice.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Great.
Clear, crystal clear.
Okay, so what we're going to try and do today is give you some ideas on whether there are other commercial opportunities for CO2. And I'd like to put that in the context of the energy transition world and what I call the energy trilemma, which is the trilemma, the dealing with climate change, dealing with economic issues, and energy security issues. And since the Russia-Ukraine war, energy security is becoming a lot more important. So thinking about carbon dioxide, commercialization, and hydrogen are going to become more important to countries, especially island archipelago countries such as Indonesia and Philippines, and where we need to look at alternative fuel options in remote areas. Sorry, I just ate something which didn't go down well with me. Okay, what I'd like to do first is talk about Indonesia. Indonesia is a really quite a large emitter. We've got over 600 million tons of CO2 emissions and probably close to 2 billion tons per year of greenhouse gases. And that's a lot. When we're talking about globally right now, we're only using about 140 to 150 million tons of CO2 in the whole world. So that's a negative, I suppose, because we're emitting a lot. Now, it's almost 2% of the world's global emissions. It's a high percentage. As you can see, over the last 20 years, that has doubled in the last 20 years. But the good thing is it's starting to flatten out. Over the last since there has been an effort from the government since the Paris Climate Accord, and it's starting to not climb as fast. Where are these emissions coming from? You'll see on this particular slide that the flaring has decreased over time. By the way, all these slides I got from our World in Data website, which is pretty good. the cement sector, which is a highly really big emitter, is still growing in Indonesia, and the emissions are growing as well, as is the gas business. Oil is pretty stable, but the big difference in carbon dioxide emissions is with coal. As you can see on this particular slide, if you look at the can you see my my arrow on the screen? No, you can't.
No.
We
No.
can.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah,
can.
sure.
We
Sorry.
can, yes.
Sorry, yeah.
Oh, there
Sorry.
he is, right? Oh,
Yeah.
so you can
There you
see
go.
that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, so in the last few years, the emissions from the coal sector, originating from the coal sector, and of course coal is being used domestically in the power, in power stations, steel, and cement. It's been leveling off. It's good. But 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was 20% of what it is now. Oil has been pretty stable for the last 10 years, as has natural gas, relatively stable, and cement is still climbing, and flaring is much the same. And when next time someone talks about the emissions from flaring, as far as CO2 is concerned, it is insignificant compared to what is coming from the coal sector. Of course, there's a lot of methane being emitted as well, which is not so easy to capture. Now, when we talk about greenhouse gases, which includes all the other gases, the big emitter is the forestry sector, and especially the palm oil area. And particularly the waste from that, the peat, the fires, it's really almost 1 billion tons a year. That is a lot. 4 times what the power sector does. And so when we talk about emissions, and the way they measure this, guys, is that they convert other gases to carbon dioxide, but with a formula which is based on 100 years of emissions timescale, which I don't agree with, but that's what they. Have I lost you guys?
No, we're still here. No worries.
But it's just that I've lost my screen doesn't want to work.
Oh, no.
I'll do it this way.
Yeah.
Now, remember that number, 620 million tons of CO2 in Indonesia. Around the world, there's around about 40 to 50 million tons of CO2 being stored. So when we talk about CCUS or CCS, it really is pretty small. The biggest CCS project in carbon storage project in this part of the world is in Gorgon, Australia, which has been commercially unsuccessful and technically unsuccessful, and that's only storing about, well, the capacity is about 3 million tons a year. But it's been storing less than 2 million tons a year. So when you compare that to 600, it's not very much. However, in CCS, we're seeing quite a few projects being talked about. You guys know what's been happening in Indonesia. We had last month, we had a really good week presented by the International Energy Agency in Bandung on greenhouse gases, and where we had 50 odd people from all around the world, 45 I think. And in Malaysia, they've got two projects, one being operated by PTT called the Golok Field and the Lang Leban CCS, carbon storage project, and another one by Petronas called Kasawari, and they're going to eventually inject into a depleted field called M1. The Lang Leban field is an aquifer, and not a depleted field. And of course, in Indonesia, we're talking about Arun, we're talking about Central Java and many others. Thailand's is looking at utilizing the Arctic field for storage. I think they're nuts because of the number of wells on the Arctic field. How do you control that? And there are others around. China has got 3 or 4 now, and Australia is looking at, has got Gorgon. They're looking at another one in Barossa, another one in Victoria called Carbon Net, and there's a demo plant in the Otway Basin as well. So the projects, none of them make money, of course, but the projects are moving ahead. How can we commercialize these? That's we emit a lot of gases. Can we commercialize it? I put this into 5 separate boxes. It can be a valuable commodity. We need to think about where the markets are for these products. Using CO2, how much will that help our, or what in Indonesia has done is there, I presume you're all familiar with the NDC, which has been upgraded this year. If you're not, I can send you a copy of that. That's the national, basically the national plan, which has been submitted to the United Nations. It is not an alternative. Carbon dioxide use is not an alternative carbon storage, because you're not really taking out, you're not really reducing your carbon footprint by all that much. However, it is a way to commercialize CO2, and that we should not ignore. And it's also a way to have another revenue stream if you're in the oil and gas business, potentially. If for example we want to look at jet fuel, for example, could you do a project on, put that as part of your POD, for example? but you've got to educate the government and including SKK Migas. Not an easy task. It can be a valuable commodity. Right now, there's roughly, let's say, 240 million tons of carbon dioxide are used every year. Mostly, up till now, that's mostly in the US and Canada and EOR, and that's mostly immiscible. That's mostly immiscible floods. And if you're with the International Energy Agency, they don't count those as real CCS projects because of you're not really reducing your carbon footprint by very much, if at all. The production of CO2-based fuels at this time is not very commercial because they're very energy intensive, and we need to have hydrogen. Now, where do you get your hydrogen? We still have green hydrogen, but green hydrogen is based on renewables, and our renewables, in Indonesia, for example, is quite tiny. So can CO2 utilization support the climate goals? Yes, it's part of the toolbox. It means that if you want to use that in the oil and gas business, or if you want to work together with some of the big emitters and capture the CO2, you need some sort of incentive to do that. And right now that's not really in place. What are the climate benefits of CO2 use? Depends on where is the source. Are you taking the CO2 from a plant or project where they're going to emit it anyway? For example, just think of the emissions from Chilegon. Huge. I don't know what it'd be. Probably be certainly more than 50 million tons a year. If you have a CO2-based product, what are you replacing? Let's say you want to utilize a CO2 fuel for transportation, where you combine CO2 with hydrogen. You could be replacing oil, so your carbon footprint would be reduced, which is a good thing. What sort of energy are you using to convert the CO2? If you're using a dirty energy, well, that doesn't help. That doesn't help the overall climate benefit. And how long is the carbon retained in the product? That's important as well. And of course, the big issue is the scale. What can the market? What is the market? What is the product? Can the market afford the product you're trying to sell? So there are opportunities, I think, in this sector. The good thing about Indonesia, the bad thing about Indonesia, is that we have a lot of emissions. The good thing about Indonesia is that we have a lot of potential CO2 capture. They're both the same thing. The other good thing about Indonesia is that we have a lot of water, fresh water. Now, why do I say that's good? because fresh water is necessary to convert water into hydrogen. And a lot of countries don't do that. So we've got a lot of rainwater, frankly, that we could use. So that's a competitive advantage. Say, for example, in Australia, they don't have that advantage. However, we need government support. We need government incentives to produce any products from CO2. And I think that needs to be reinforced by, by IPA and CARDIN, etc. That we can utilize one of our big emission areas to develop new products. So what are the current uses? We've been using carbon dioxide for 100 years. You use it. We've all used it. We use it in our Coca-Cola. We use it in our food. We use it for dry ice, and in a couple of parts of the world we use it for enhanced oil recovery. Not many parts. But particularly in Europe, Canada, North America, China, Korea, Japan, there's a lot of money being spent on research in this area. The existing commercial production of food and beverages, the cooling, dry cleaning, there's health care, there's water treatment, there's, you've seen the containers to put out fires, and they exist now. They're pretty small industries, but they're important. We use CO2 to enhance methanol production. We use CO2 in greenhouses to enhance your crop yield for vegetables and for usually commercial crops. Why is it so good? It's pretty stable carbon dioxide. It absorbs a lot of heat. It can act as a solvent, which helps in the chemical sector. And it's not very reactive. It doesn't really react with other elements. When you talk about things like hydrogen, etc., they're a lot more reactive and they're a lot more dangerous. CO2 is not really. This is a pretty good slide. We basically it's the way that we it's an interesting way of presenting it. We have the direct use, as I mentioned before. We have utilization in the food area, EOR, and then we have the conversion side, where we need CO2 for polymers, where we need it for synthetic fuels, and what I call designer fuels here, things such as jet fuel, high-end fuels, particularly for people who don't care about the price. The largest consumer today is the fertilizer sector. And then the EOI guys. Of course, they're both of those sectors are passing on the costs of the CO2 to the end user. This is I'm not going to go through this, it's boring, but it's a good table to, if you're going to take something out of this talk, take this table because it's really, it's quite useful. And the current applications for CO2 in Asia. And I'll get on to the ones I think which are useful. What are our future opportunities? We're seeing more interest in this sector. I think carbon dioxide is there's an opportunity in what we're calling e-fuels, alternative source of fuels. I'll give you an example. I mentioned the other day to some of the guys, I was talking to the military big shots in Indonesia, actually sitting in Chitos, and we were talking about, well, we're doing a risk workshop really, and we're talking about scenarios, and one of those scenarios is what happens, especially after Ukraine, what happens if there's an invasion? Where do we get the fuel from? Especially in areas such as military bases and it could be hydrogen. It could be a combination of hydrogen and carbon dioxide, where we could generate those, make those domestically, not relying on external imports in terms of crisis, in times of crisis, right? However, we need government policy, we need government support. The market for the CO2 is probably not going to be very big, but it could add, as I said before, it potentially could add a revenue stream onto any project that you have. It might even extend the life of a project. But we need real research. And one of the possibilities is to join with one of the startups elsewhere in the world who are looking at developing CO2 as a product, as a commodity. This, again, is another one of those busy graphs. What we've, similar to the one we did before, we had the direct use, and we go all the way from greenhouses to fertilizer to utilizing as a solvent, putting it into refrigeration. Remember, the CO2 is a very strange diagram. I don't know how much you guys have dealt with the transportation of CO2. It's rather interesting. That's why we say called a supercritical power system. In other words, the CO2 is a liquid, but it's got the viscosity of a gas, and when it be what we call a dense phase, it's quite intriguing. We use it in welding. We use a lot in the chemical world. We store every ambulance has got CO2 to store their medicines in. Then there's the conversion side. the fuels, the methane, the methanol, the aviation, which I think is really exciting. The chemical side, the plastics, the new plastics that you make out of CO2. And then there's the really new world of utilizing CO2 as a storage, actually as storage in buildings, in cement. And later I'll show you a company that's doing that. So where are the opportunities? Fuels, the chemicals, the building materials, and increasing your agricultural yields. Because of the time, we could sit with these particular graphics and spend half an hour on each one of them, but I won't do that. But you know, I'll send you a copy of them. So I've got one on the CO2 derived chemicals, derived building materials, and building materials from waste. In other words, react your CO2 with the waste materials from power plants or industrial processes. And that's really, it's really an interesting area. But again, you need to have incentives from the government to do that. I visited one like this in the UK, this company called Carbonate, and they were showing me how they use a little bit of CO2, but it comes out 5,000 tons a year. But their product, which is an aggregate for the building materials, the construction world, becomes 60,000 tons a year. So they're making money. The greenhouse area is a really interesting potential. Again, because it not only increases the yield, it also increases the time it takes to grow some of these plants. The ones I saw were in Holland and in the Netherlands, and that's they're using CO2 in a gaseous phase. Oh, sorry. Now, if we're looking at a market, I've put down here some of the areas that are important for us to look at. One is the scalability. If you have a small plant, will the market be enough for you to upgrade? How competitive are you against your competitors? And Indonesia is a tough one for that, because in Europe or in Northern Asia, where you get basically an incentive to, if you have a lower carbon footprint. Indonesia, you don't really have that. if you go to tender, do you, it's probably a question for you guys. Do you have to, so how can I say it? In some countries, if you go to tender, you need to show the company that you're supplying your product and service to, your carbon footprint, your net zero plan, your and that becomes part of the evaluation process. We there are some companies that have an internal carbon price. A common number is $25 a ton of CO2. So let's say you are comparing oil and gas project internally to a solar project. The part of your economics would be what would be the life cycle emissions from that project, and that would have to, for your oil and gas project, would have to have a cost of $25 a ton. I don't think that's so common in countries such as Indonesia, but it is getting common with the big organizations. I pressed the wrong button, guys. Sorry, I've got something else on top of my slide, so I can't see it. It's going so well too. Let's talk about some of the companies that are working in this area. Now, what I'd planned to do, I had embedded some videos, but I really don't know how to. I'm only a beginner in Zoom. I'm a Zoom. I'm not very experienced in Zoom, and that was getting a bit too difficult for me. So you have to bear with me. I'll give you the links. I've made a list of a few companies which you might want to look at to give you some real world examples. These companies here on the left hand side, and the areas that they're working in on the x-axis. The carbon upcycling technology is is a Canadian group, basically being funded by the oil sands companies, and they're looking at using CO2 to manufacture concrete in the construction world. Really, I really would welcome you, recommend that you have a look at these YouTube videos. They're very, very intriguing, and I think there are some opportunities here in Indonesia. And the other thing is there are, if the other issue here, there are green funds around. Now, the Asia Development Bank and some of the other banks will give you money if you want to be an entrepreneur in this sector. They also look at plastics. This company 12 has got, they are using CO2 for aviation jet fuel, using it for lenses for eyeglasses, etc., and for the health sector, and of course and plastics in automobiles. Ruby has started making synthetic textiles. Now, my daughter's in the fashion business, and she doesn't think very highly of the quality yet. But I wouldn't know. But they're raising money, and they're going ahead with this, and you know that's an area where it might be an opportunity in Indonesia. Carbon Cure, have a look at their website. They have a very slick methodology, or they're very good at their sales pitch. Basically, they're injecting CO2 into concrete to make the concrete stronger. In other words, it puts a strength element to the concrete rather than using steel. And I talked to an insurance company about it, whether they would use this instead of reinforced steel concrete. And they said yes. So far, so good. This British company, a little company called Lanzatech, they're trying to go public. They're making cleaning agents. They signed a like a MOU demonstration deal with British Airways for aviation fuel. What they're looking at for aviation fuel is short haul flights, not long haul, and of course in the UK there is a tax benefit for companies such as British Airways. This is a methanol organization in Scandinavia and in Sweden and Finland, and you know, they're trying to make their carbon footprint better in Sweden by having a subsidiary which is in the methanol business, and so they're trying to reduce their nitrogen content in the methanol projects. Another chemical company called Renew CO2. I looked at their information, and I'm not really a chemical engineer, so I was a little bit confused. Now, in summary, can carbon dioxide be utilized to help decarbonize the economy in Indonesia? Absolutely, of course it can. Yeah, will it decrease the whole 600 million tons? No, but it can be part of the overall plan. And if we can find, and the other advantage is that it's domestic, it could take the place of imported competitive products. And I think it can. Will the price be competitive? Well, in the oil and gas world, right now the price is pretty high. So yeah, it's worthwhile looking at. Where should we look at? The process industries, the cement, steel, chemicals. They're a target. They're a target for carbon storage. If you can make carbon storage into a business model. You know, it's not an oil and gas business model, but it's a business model, and because they're very intensive, high temperature processes. I'll give you an example. I mentioned again the other day. I've been talking to the people in South Korea, and they have a project called blue hydrogen. In other words, there's especially the steel sector, which the state-owned steel company emits close to 100 million tons a year of CO2, and they're looking at changing their blast furnaces from being coal-fired to hydrogen-fired. Now, they don't have carbon storage, but and they don't have very much renewables. So they're going to produce hydrogen using stream reforming from a gas stream. They're going to call that blue hydrogen. So they're going to have to make it blue, they're going to have to store the CO2. So in other words, the new steel plants, they're going to decarbonize those by actually by electrifying them, or use hydrogen as a heating element, because you can get pretty high temperatures with hydrogen instead of using coal. So that's happening as we speak, but they get a lot of government incentives to do that. So they're the areas that I would those high emitters, they have to be a target for CO2 storage, for CO2 capture. Those areas which are direct use are probably a way to start, because as soon as you bring in hydrogen, it becomes more complicated. I think that there could be a revenue stream which is not being utilized now. The the importance of energy security, as I mentioned before, is becoming critical for some potential buyers, as I said, the military, who don't care so much about the price of their fuels, but you need government support. So that's the end of our presentation. I hope it's a little bit different. I'm hoping that I've got you thinking about whether there's any opportunities in Indonesia for the commercial utilization of CO2. So I'll pass it back to the moderator, and if you have any, and I will make sure all the slides are passed on to whoever wants them. And if you need to talk to me directly, I live either in Jakarta or in Singapore. Right now I'm in Singapore, actually I live with my daughter in Singapore and my wife in Jakarta, in Cilandak, just behind di belakang Citos. And I sort of spend 2 weeks there and 2 weeks in Singapore and 2 weeks in Jakarta, depending on who is the most angry at me, because wives and daughters are always angry at their at people, at me anyway. Thanks for listening, and if you have any further questions, I suppose I'm on. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter. That's very interesting presentation. And many things actually make me also headache when see so many opportunities and the utilization option for the CO2 utilization. So before we continue with the Q&A, if anyone have any question, please put your question in the chat box. And while we are waiting for the question, maybe Mas Valen will guide us to take a picture first, or?
Yeah, Mas Andri. So let's have a photo session first before we continue with the Q&A. I invite all participants who are still in the call or in this webinar to turn on their camera. And bapaknya ya Mbak will be the one who is going to screen capture the Zoom window.
Yes, Mas Valen.
Yep.
Sure.
Maybe you should yeah, okay. I think this is the best format. We will wait until everybody turn on their camera. Don't be shy, folks. Please turn on the camera so we can start the photo session.
Okay.
Luthfi is trying to turn on his camera. Any other?
Okay, maybe they are already in the sleeping dress.
Oh, okay. So Mas Luthfi is there. Good evening, Mas Luthfi. Thank you for turning on the camera. Okay, I think we can just start Mbak Fanya. People will probably don't have the mood to turn on the camera yet.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Maybe
Mbak
we'll
Elsia
wait for
Flores,
another
yeah,
second.
Siap, Mbak.
Okay. Wait, Ardia. Okay. Ready. Smile in 3, 2, 1. Okay, hold on.
One more time. Smile in 3, 2, 1. Okay, I think it's enough, Mas Valen. Back to you.
Thank you, Mbak Fanya. Back to you, Mas Andri.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. No one put the question. I don't know why. Maybe everybody still confused with what is the U mean for the utilization in CO2. And actually, I recognize there is one question is actually from Mr. Mas Valen. Maybe Mas Valen you can ask the question directly to Pak Peter, right? Rather than just I'm reading this.
Okay.
There's no one asking. Please, Mas Valen.
Yeah, thank you, Mas Andri. Yeah, Pak Peter, a really intriguing presentation, especially when you laid out all the company that probably leading in this utilization. It leads me to a question: what is the low-hanging fruit or the early adaptation that people in Indonesia? I don't know whether it's going to be people or it's going to be the government to do this utilization. Which one that you think is the more applicable? I don't know whether technology or product that people can start early or adaptation or really a low-hanging fruit for this technology.
Pak Peter, you are not wearing your microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah. You there?
Yeah.
The problem is the source. It's a bit like the CO2 storage thing. You need to combine your source. CO2 utilization. You need to see where you can get the lowest source of CO2. Now, where is that? Is that from an existing emitter? Could it be from, say, pushery, for example? Could it be, or could it be someone who's got an incentive to utilize their emissions, like an oil and gas producer? I wouldn't look at the power sector because it's really hard to capture. It's not so simple. So where you have a source where your CO2 is in a certain area, that's a good place to start. Now, what sort of project do you do? I think you look at the high margin, probably the urban farming, greenhouses in built-up areas.
Okay. So other thing than fertilizer and greenhouses. If you're thinking about the things.
No, I'm not talking about fertilizer. I'm not talking about fertilizer.
Okay.
I'm talking about increasing the CO2 in the air in the greenhouse.
Oh, I see.
So the CO2 yield is higher than you get from the normal photosynthesis type of chemical reaction from the air. So it needs to be enclosed.
Yeah.
That increases your yield, increases your the timing it takes to grow things. And the other one I think is really intriguing would be the aviation fuel. That I think is really worthwhile having a look at.
In Indonesia.
Sure, because we don't have. Okay, in Java's not Indonesia, right? Anywhere outside Java, you need transportation to get anywhere. Now, is that by plane or is that by, the good thing about these products, which we don't realize, we don't think about, is the price might be high, whether it's hydrogen or whether it's a combination of hydrogen and CO2, but it can be projected. In other words, you know what the price is going to be in the future. Whereas in the oil and gas sector, you don't know what that price is, do you? You look now at the LNG world. The spot price today for LNG is 3 times what the contract price is. So the beauty of a domestic source, even if of a fuel, even if high, is that you know what that price is in the next. You can do a cash flow analysis on it pretty easily. Right now, if you're utilizing fossil fuel, whatever it is, for your project, whether it's a power project or mining project or anything, how do you predict the price? I'll give you a real world example. I used to work for a company called BHP, and they do a emissions report every year, and they for the whole, it's the biggest mining company in the world, and they one of the biggest copper mine. The copper mine is a mine called Escondida in Chile. It's huge. It's bigger than Singapore. It's huge, and their costs for lubricants that mine, I just. So what are they doing? They're now replacing their lubricants with biofuel-based lubricants. So that reduces their carbon footprint, but also it means that they are not they're also doing a carbon offset project with the biofuels, but they can now predict what their lubricant costs are going to be for the next 10 to 15 years. The life cycle of lubricants cost more than the trucks. It's really quite a big business. And that's the area I'd look at. Especially in a place like here, transportation. I wouldn't do it in the US for that, but the US have got a 45Q tax advantage, so that's a bit different. But where you have remote power, off-grid power, off-grid transportation, where electric vehicles won't work, all that sort of stuff, I'd look at that.
Would you say that then Medco, who has like several fields in South Sumatra, who actually have high content, high CO2 content, and they presumably just emit that into the air, have a head start for this, because like, you know, it's in South Sumatra, and some of the fields, if I could recall, has like 20% of CO2 content in the gas. For this,
Which field?
Mas Andri in South Sumatra as well probably knows. Singa, yeah, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know whether there's a...
Yeah, well, actually many oil fields emitted CO2 in Indonesia.
Okay. Singa is one of mine, because I was in charge of that block, the Lematang block, when it first started.
It was like 20% or 22% of CO2 content.
Yeah, and they don't report that.
They just emit that flare to the air.
Yeah, they don't report it. Even now, I'll give you I last year was asked to for the Hong Kong Stock Exchange to prepare a for every public company a net zero plan for companies to prepare a emissions project. But in Indonesia, that you don't have to. Indonesia's report. Sorry, emissions report. But no, there are plenty. I mean, of course, the Repsol projects. You know how much is coming out of the you've got your biggest membrane plant in the world in South Sumatra.
Now, would you agree then with the statement, because Medco is actually have their own petrochemical arm. So if they want to do a head start, they actually already have sources, and proximity to Java and the industrial places is actually closer.
But I go back to the point that you need to have some incentives to do it.
Yeah, government support.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's interesting discussion. Yeah. When we are discussing about the CO2 utilization and so on. But again,
well, it's a bit like carbon storage for the industrial sector. How do you convince the big emitters to spend more money on capturing and storing their CO2?
But in contrary to big emitter in power plant, for oil and gas company, they actually already have that kind of processing facility.
Yeah, but not for the steel or cement plants.
Not for steel or cement plant. That's
or
why
power. Who are the big emitters?
That's why I think oil and gas company who have the fields that originally have that high CO2 content will have this.
But what you're using there is what I call the carrot or the stick. The carrot is the incentive. Oil and gas, where's the incentive for the company to do that? It's more of a penalty if you don't do it. If you don't have a carbon storage project, you don't get your POD approved. But if you go to an old project that's already emitting CO2, and you say to Migas, to SKK Migas, oh, I'm so sorry, we're emitting. We want to capture and store that. Will they allow you to spend the money on it?
Good question.
Yeah, I think that's a question for anyone in SKK Migas and also in our government. So that question actually, Peter, come up with another option. Yeah. Maybe this is also the continuing of the Valen question. Yeah. Your presentation showed that we emitted about 600 million tons a year, right?
Yeah.
And our government make a commitment to reduce 30% about that number in 2030. And you are also mentioned about the consumption of CO2 capture. It's only about 280, I think, right, in your presentation. So if we are just calculating a simple mathematics, 600 multiplied by 30%, so 200 million tons. That's what government of Indonesia committed to the world in G20 to reduce in 2030. Do you have any suggestion for our government? If let's say
absolutely,
or that's right. What is the solution, right?
A commitment without a plan is a dream, right?
That's right. That's right. And also you
right
that our government have a dream with 1 million barrels of production in also the same year 2030, right?
Well, you're a
sensitive discussion now.
You're a South Sumatra. You're a South Sumatra guy. We know you could get up to over 1 million barrels a day. Yeah, if you change the fiscal terms.
Yeah.
Easy. Easy.
Yeah. So the answer is you already mentioned in your presentation, right? We need a government push to implement the CO2 CCUS project or even CCS project, right? That's what become a big homework for our government, and yeah, that's what the reality. And we are facing a dream until the government produce the legal standing for it, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's say you want to start a new company and you want to monetize CO2, and you go to what's the name of the new field in near Bojonegoro?
Gundi, no?
The gas field. Just
Banyurip.
No, the new one I just on stream this year, last year.
I forgot. Sorry.
What's it called? JTB or something?
Jatibarang.
No, not Jatibarang. No, but
Tiung Biru.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's 20% CO2, right?
Yeah.
Really? Oh yeah. Okay. So it's
at least
in East Java. So yeah.
And no one cares.
Even Jatibarang 90% of CO2, Peter. That's our president.
So what happens? We want to help. We want to help the CO2 emissions by going to that company, by going to that field and say, we want to take your CO2 from you.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
But we want it for free.
Yeah. Why not?
And in fact, we want you to capture it for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Will they do that? Yeah. Will SKK Migas allow that as a cost recoverable cost?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's still interesting discussion, Mas.
Yeah, no. What I'm saying is they need, going back to your question about the how you can have a target, but you need to have a plan to get to that target, and that's what's missing. The National Development Plan, it really is not very detailed.
Yeah.
So
but
that's
the upcoming ESDM ministry regulation will have some light to that, isn't it? Like I saw the draft.
But that's only all. Yeah, I've seen the draft too, but that's only oil and gas.
Yeah, but then it opened the door for those kind of stuff that you talk about, like other company wants that gas for free or for at least it's a framework for SKKM migas to give that gas to
yeah, but in that, is there a mechanism for a company, not a oil and gas company, to take that CO2 without PSE terms, with a corporate tax, no ring fence?
Yeah, that's not in the draft. The corporate tax, the ring fence or no ring fence, but the utilization of that, I think it's actually there, right? You have options to whether you utilize other people's CO2 or you.
Yeah, it's not very well defined.
Yeah, it's not really that detailed definition.
But going back to your question, how do you, 600 million tons a year, which is, you want to reduce that by 30% or by, let's say 100 million tons plus. How do you get from where you are today to where you want to be in that time period? Yeah. What's the roadmap? That's, I think, is the question.
Yeah.
To them, not to us.
That's right. So it's become our committee, I mean SPE, to start looking right government people to start looking for it and make a focus group discussion like this again, Mr. Valen, right? So I think the time is already near, right?
Yeah.
It's back to you, Mas Valen, and that's all from me, and maybe from Peter, if you have any close statement or closing remarks for us to share before we end back to the committee.
We actually have some slides after this. Can you?
It's an area. This whole area of decarbonisation and I don't like to use energy transition because we've been going through energy transition for hundreds of years. But the decarbonisation is something that we should be thinking about, and really difficult for us because we come from the carbon world. But we as SPE members and a lot of us have had to deal with the subsurface. We need to think about the opportunities in this world of decarbonisation, energy transition, net zero, and who better to do that than people who have had to deal with in the world of hydrocarbons. And so I think that we what was some other country.
I kind of like lose Peter a bit.
Yeah.
Is my connection?
Yeah, I think there's, we need to address.
I think we get a bit connection.
Yeah, we lost you a bit, Peter.
Was I talking to myself?
Now it's clearer.
Yeah, I mean, we probably already got all the main message, Peter. Yeah, thank you for that.
I think so. I think so, guys.
But finally, we'll share some slides.
Yeah, I'll send those to you.
Yeah. So as a token of appreciation, before we close this webinar, on behalf of SPE Java Indonesia Section, we would like to present to both of you, Pak Peter and Mas Andri, with e-certificate. Mbak Dian will give the e-certificate to you first to Pak Peter. Is Mbak Dian still available, Mbak? Halo? Halo, Mbak Dian? Halo? Ya.
Can you hear me?
Ya. Ya, Mbak.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Pak Peter, Pak Andri, and all the participants here for the interesting discussion. I think after this session, we have a lot of homework to think about to realize our government's target, net zero target. Yeah. Anyway, as a token of appreciation from SPE Java Indonesia Section, we would like to present Pak Peter. I think we lost him.
I think he
yeah.
left this room.
What? He
Yes,
left.
I think.
Okay.
Maybe his
Never mind.
connection.
Let's wait for his.
He probably thought it's already over. I don't know.
No, I think his connection got disconnected.
Yeah, let me check.
Can you please check, Mas Valen?
Yeah.
No wonder he's missing.
He probably itu. Yeah, he thinks it's over. Yeah, I cannot reach him. Probably connection, yeah. It's not delivered to him as well.
Okay. Maybe we give to Mas Andri first, yeah.
Yeah, Mbak.
All right.
Please do, Mbak.
So, as a token of appreciation from SPE Java Indonesia Section, Mas Andri, we would like to thank you for your help and participation and contribution, yeah, to our program. And appreciate your help to run the session and also the discussion. So, unfortunately, we cannot present to you directly, but hopefully it shows our appreciation, yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mas Andri.
Thank you to Mbak Dian, Mas Valen.
Maybe document it first, Mbak Fanya atau Mas Valen?
Iya, Mbak Fanya.
Okay. Maybe Dika juga bisa bantu screenshot ya.
Oh ya, saya juga deh.
Okay, cheers.
Cheers. 3, 2, 1. Okay, Mbak Dian.
Alright.
I think we lost Pak Peter, Mbak Dian.
We lost Pak Peter.
I
We
cannot
will just
reach him.
email the.
Yeah.
We'll probably just email it ya, Mas Valen ya.
Yeah.
And Mas Andri, we will also email the certificate to you later, ya.
Okay, thank you very much, Mbak Dian, Mas Valen.
Thank you, Mbak
Alright,
Dian.
over to you, Mas Valen.
Yeah, thank you, Mbak Dian. Thank you, Mas Andri. Thank you, everybody. So that's the end of our technical discussion group session. On behalf of SPE Java Indonesia Section, we would like to thank you all again for attending this until almost 9 p.m. So for participants, please provide your feedback. We have that in the link, or you can just scan the QR code there, and you will we will give you an e-certificate. You do the feedback. And also don't forget, we are going to continue this CCUS series with first the 2 upcoming technical discussion group online. First is a systematic approach to source and sink matching for CO2, EOR, and sequestration in South Sumatra by Pak Usman Basarai. And then later on in February, Mas Jere Sorim Terdasa will present his SPE paper on that topic, on the CCUS topic. And also we will inform you that we're going to have a SPE distinguished lecturer offline. Is free of charge but limited seat. It's going to be on 24th of January. It's probably on Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken, Tuesday or Wednesday, I forgot. The venue will be in PHE Tower, South Jakarta. So the lecturer will be Dr. Samuel Krefor. He is a faculty of Engineering Department of Earth and Science Engineering at Imperial College London. So the topic will be, that's the title, From Digital Rock to Gigaton Scale CO2 Storage, 2 Revolutions in 1. So please keep monitoring our social media and LinkedIn, and you will find the link to register to that upcoming event, both for the TDG and also the distinguished lecturer. Okay, I think it's a wrap. Thank you again for joining us in this TDG. Thank you, Mas Andri. Thank you, Mbak Dian, Mbak Fanya, and everybody, Mas Andika.
Thank you,
Goodbye.
everyone.
Have a
Goodbye. See
good
you
rest.
again.
Thank you. Good
Bye.
night.
Terima kasih Mas Valen, Mbak Dian, dan Mbak Fana. Sampai ketemu lagi.
Terima kasih, Mas Andri.